All right, it's time to take a look at my 2023 data. All in all, this was not a bad reading year for me. When I look at the Goodreads challenge over the last few years, which is kind of like sort of the goal I set for myself. I always say 100 books. I've done 100 books since like 2020, and every year I've crested over it at least a little bit. So my best reading year was in 2021. I read 134 books, but I read 123 books this year. I had a total pages read of 38,601 pages. I listened to 392.5 hours, and I reread 4 books, which is not surprising to me considering I teach Night to sophomores, so I'm going to reread that book pretty much at least once a year. But I also reread Night. I reread My Heart is a Chainsaw, and I think there's another one I reread, but it's not coming to me at this point. As far as the genre breakdown that I read, it does seem that I am reading a lot more contemporary this year than I have in the past. And I think I read contemporary like slash something, so it was either like contemporary thriller, contemporary horror, contemporary romance. But I did read contemporary most out of everything. Coming in next is historical, and I'm actually kind of surprised at the amount of historical. But again, I'm also not because, like I said, I do Night. That's a historical book. It's a memoir. Any of the books we read for the World War II reading challenge that I did with my kids, or small group project they had, those would have been historical books. So that makes sense. Horror at 15 is way too low for me. I'm very embarrassed by that. And then fantasy being at 11, I'm just glad to see that a little bit lower. Every year I'm shocked by the amount of fantasy I read. I feel like a lot of times I get suckered into it. I did not read as much romance this year, but also I took a break from like the Ice Planet Barbarian series, which I had been reading pretty regularly. I could get back into that at some point, but and then it's just ones and twos of other different genres. And again, I'm limited a little bit in what I can select as far as what I think the main genre is, and there's some that kind of transcend, but for the most part, this is a pretty fair breakdown. If we look at the publication years of the books I read, the most books that I read were actually new releases. They were actually released in 2023, which I can't quite believe. That feels fake to me. I might have to go back and look and make sure that that's the case, but apparently, yeah, 2023 I read the most books, and the next would be last year's. So what I'm thinking happened here, the reason why I have a lot more from the past like 4 years is because I prioritized in my Buzzwordathon this year and any of my reading challenges really, reading past Owl Crate books and reading Owl Crate books in general because I really wanted to get them off my shelf. But I don't know. Oh, and the Literally Dead Book Club. A lot of those are new releases, so it would make sense they were published either in 2022 or 2023. So that tracks. I read a lot more physical books this year than I thought I did. I read 44% of the books I read, or 44 of the books, 35% of the books I read were physical books, with the next one being a mixture. And I tried to do that this year so I would get through my backlog of owned books that are physically here. So I think that's why the mixture is so high because I did tend to split it. Like, okay, I'll find the audiobook, I'll listen to that to and from school, and then when I get home, I can read it physically. And I found that I was actually a lot quicker at reading books by being able to do that. So I would recommend that in the future. I did not read a lot of ebooks. I definitely think I hit my peak with ebooks in the summer because I was able to go to the pool and I could read the Kindle safely in the water, whereas I couldn't take my physical books out there with me. And audiobooks, I think that would have been higher if I wasn't already putting stuff in mixture because yes, I listened to 25 audiobooks, but that's just 25 pure audiobooks, not with a physical book involved. So that kind of tracks, but I am pleased to see how much I read of my physical library with that. Speaking of which, actually, I'm super proud of the fact that I read the most of owned books this year. So it says 82 books out of the 123 are books that I physically owned. Um, so that is a great number to have. I'm trying to tack away at my owned books as much as possible. The next one that I did the most of was library books at 18. And I counted library books as things I checked out from Hoopla because it uses my library card. So like technically is library. Libro FM already has its own slot. There's not as much of that, but also I'm not going to wait 2 weeks on something I can get immediately on Hoopla. 8 NetGalley books is surprising to me. I didn't think I'd done too good with NetGalley, and I didn't. I still have a lot of books to read on NetGalley. It's embarrassing. And Kindle Unlimited, I, you know, I had to get rid of it. I've decided to kind of like let it lapse into the new year. I'll probably pick it back up in the summer when I read more on my Kindle. But considering I don't read on my Kindle a lot during the year, it just didn't make sense to have it. But I am really pleased with the 82 as far as the owned library. And again, some of those I put them for read and owned, but I read it through an audiobook. So do with that what you will. But I still counted it. We also can see that I read 81 standalone books. They aren't part of a series. They don't have companions. They don't have any kind of sequels. I read 35 books that are part of some kind of series or duology. For author stats, it's split evenly between read before and new to me, and a couple debuts thrown in there. So that's interesting. We want a breakdown of the best reading month that I had. It was by and large July, but I could have told you that. I thought I had a pretty good reading month in March, and 13 is not bad. But I also read the same amount of books in August and September, which kind of goes against my suggestion that I don't read as much during the school year, because those are the peak like months out of the school year, and I read plenty. I didn't read as many in February, but February is also a short month, so that makes sense. But yeah, July being my best is not surprising. June being only 10 kinda is, but and December being 3, that's literally just because December I was doing testing and we've got the holidays and it's always chaotic. I don't read as much when I do plays, so October and December being a little bit shorter do make sense. February being shorter because I was in Sistract makes sense. But overall, not bad as far as it goes. I averaged about like 10 per month. So hopefully I can increase those numbers next year. I completed multiple readathons this year. I did the Asian readathon in May where I read The Book of Salt, Best of Friends, Run to Me to Earth, A Woman is No Man, and Sex and Vanity. I did Summerween, which was July 7th through the 13th, and I read Our Wives Under the Sea, The Only One Left, Halloween Party, 20th Century Ghosts, and Venus in the Blind Spot. I read and completed the Books in the Freezer Challenge. So for a 2023 release, I read The Spite House horror retelling. I read The Initial Insult. Orange or Purple Cover, I read Don't Fear the Reaper. Spooky nonfiction, I read It Came from the Closet. A single author collection was 20th Century Ghosts. A book with chapter titles was Thinner. A Title is a Place in Nightfall. Translated 19 Claws and a Blackbird. Indie/small press, I read Waif. LGBTQ protagonist was All Hallows. A dysfunctional family is Mr. Magic. A food-centric horror would be Moon of the Crusted Snow. A fake film/movie is also Mr. Magic. And AAPI, that's Asian American Pacific Islander author, is Venus in the Blind Spot. Now, in retrospect, for fake film/movie, I don't like doing repeats on readathons if I can help it, and I would have preferred to do a food-centric or fake film book on its own. I just ran out of time. So this is what it is. Next year I'll do better. Another readathon I did was my own personal readathon of the Gina Card Deck Challenge. If you'd like more information on that, you can see any of the 3 videos I did on that. But the other reading challenges I did was the Literally Dead Book Club, where I read all of those for the book club. I also did something for the Buzzwordathon for every month, but when I do the Buzzwordathon on this data sheet, I do an individual month by itself in case I read multiple books with that buzzword. So I'm just not going to show you all those, but I did complete the entire Buzzwordathon, and that data is in my story graph. The last bit of fun data before we get to my ratings for the year is book cover colors. I'm very fascinated by the idea of book cover colors. I read the most of blue covers, with 29 of the books having blue colors, and that's blue as like the majority color, not like just blue. The next one was black. I thought I read more green than this, but apparently no. I read the same amount of brown, green, and red. There were very few purple books that I read this year, but also I don't think purple is as popular as a color as some others are. I'm shocked there are as many gray covers. I didn't read any that I think I would put in other because they were purely like multicolored. Most have a leading color. They have a color that they default to. But this tracks with my overall data for my room and the books that I own. I've tracked all the cover colors, and blue is by and large the one that I have the most of, with black right there behind it. So there's something interesting going on there, I think. Last but not least, we look at the average ratings that I did this year. I never DNF stuff. It's I know I probably should, because if I don't like it, I shouldn't read it, but I rarely DNF things. So my data breakdown ended up being that I had 48 four-star reads, and a four-star read for me is probably one I'm going to recommend to people. It's probably one I'm going to talk about for a while, but maybe there was something that was slightly off about it. Same with 4.5. I had 23 of those. If it's a 4 or 4.5, it might be that like the author did something at the very end that kind of kept it from being a perfect read. They just kind of didn't go where they needed to go or do enough. I finished The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I believe I gave it a 4.5 just because the ending was so rushed. It was so slow. The entire book was so slowly paced. And then the last part, the actual action, is why? Why was that rushed? Why didn't you give me more time with that and to process it? Sejanus had been hung before I even realized what had happened. I did only have the one star. I do believe that is The Last Hour of Gan. 2 stars. I'm glad I only had to suffer through two of those. And then a lot of 3.5s. And again, 3.5s are books that were enjoyable enough, but they're not something I'm going to remember at the end of the year. And I do have quite a few of those that aren't awful. I'm very pleased that I had 15 5-star reads. Doing my best books of the year was a struggle because I wanted to put so many books. And then later I thought of more books that I wanted to put in it, like Nine Liars should have been in it. And October, the middle grade book, that should have been in it. That book made me cry. But you can't fit them all in there. So just go like to my Storygraph or go to my Goodreads and look at what I've written for things and the uh, rating I've given them, because that will tell you a lot more than my best books video will. However, my best books video is going to be interesting. There might be some surprises in there, so we'll see. And that's it. That is the data dive for this year. I'm pretty pleased with this. I think 123 books is a great number to have. I love that I read so many of my owned books, and I can't wait to now pick through and unhaul some things because I've read it now. I don't have to keep it. If I don't want to keep it, I don't have to keep it. So that is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to get I'm going to get through recording. I'm going to pay attention to Pepper, who is attention starved, and I'm going to start unhauling some books. So hopefully you'll see an update on that later. I'm probably going to donate them to the used bookstore that gives you store credit, because, why get rid of books when you can bring more in? Okay, bye.